Mr. President, I thank the senator from West Virginia for working to reduce the cost of prescription drugs. That's the question I hear most often in Tennessee. How can I reduce what I pay for out of my own pocket for health care costs? And the most obvious way to reduce what you pay out of your own pocket for health care costs is to reduce the cost of prescription drugs. Shirley from Franklin, Tennessee is one of those Americans who asked me that question. This is what she said. As a 71-year-old senior with arthritis, I rely on Enbrel to keep my symptoms in check. My copays just increased from $95 to $175 every 90 days. At this rate, I'll have to begin limiting my usage in order to balance my budget. There's never been a more exciting time in biomedical progress, but that progress is meaningful if patients can't afford these new life-saving drugs. Last month, our Senate Health Committee, as Senator Capito mentioned, passed legislation by a vote of 20-3 that included 14 bipartisan provisions to increase prescription drug competition as a way of lowering lower-cost generic and biosimilar drugs that reach patients. Now, here's what that includes. The CREATES Act. The senator from Iowa, Senator Grassley, is on the floor. He and Senator Leahy and many others have proposed the CREATES Act, which will help bring more lower-cost generic drugs to patients by eliminating anti-competitive practices by brand drug makers. That's in the bill we approved. Or helping biosimilar companies speed drug development through a transparent, modernized, and searchable patent database. That was proposed by Senators Collins and Kaine and Braun, Hawley, Murkowski, Paul, Portman, Shaheen, Stabenow. In this provision, Mr. President, this legislation that we approved by 20-3, there are 55 different proposals by 65 different United States senators, about the same number of Republicans and Democrats, all to reduce health care costs. Here are some other examples. Improves the Food and Drug Administration's drug patent database by keeping it more up to date to help generic drug companies speed product development, a proposal offered by Senators Cassidy and Senator Durbin. Another prevents the abuse of citizens' petitions. These are used to unnecessarily delay drug approvals. Senators Gardner, Shaheen, Cassidy, Bennett, Kramer, Braun. President Trump included that in his 2020 budget. It clarifies, another provision clarifies that makers of brand biological products, such as insulin, are not gaming the system to delay new lower-cost biosimilars. That came from Senators Smith, Cassidy, and Kramer. Another provision eliminates exclusivity loopholes. Now, these allow drug companies to get exclusivity and delay patient access to costly generic drugs just by making small tweaks to an old drug. That came from Roberts, Cassidy, Smith, and President Trump. Another prevents the blocking of generic drugs. This is done by eliminating a loophole that allows a first generic to submit an application to FDA and block other generics from the market. Again, the president included this in his budget. Another provision in our bill prevents delays of biosimilar drugs by excluding biological products from compliance with U.S. pharmacopoeia standards. Now, that sounds pretty complicated, but what it means is it could delay patent access and lower the cost of drugs. Again, a President Trump proposal. Another increases in transparency on price and quality information by banning the kind of gag clauses that Senator Capito talked about. Gag clauses in contracts between providers and health plans that prevent patients, plan sponsors, or referring physicians from seeing price and quality information. And another bans pharmacy benefit managers from charging more for a drug than it paid for the same drug. So, Mr. President, instead of remaining stuck in a perpetual partisan argument over Obamacare and health insurance, and I can guarantee you that's going to continue to go on for a while, we have senators on that side of the aisle and senators on this side of the aisle working together to lower the costs of what Americans pay for health care out of their own pockets. Since January, Senator Murray and I have been working in parallel with Senator Grassley and Senator Wyden of the Finance Committee. They're continuing to work on their own bipartisan bill. The Senate Judiciary Committee also voted last month to lower the cost of prescription drugs. And in the House, the Energy and Commerce, Ways and Means, and Judiciary Committees have all reported out bipartisan bills on the cost of prescription drugs. As I've mentioned, President Trump and Secretary Azar have been focused on this. Last year, the administration released a blueprint on steps the president would take to lower prescription drugs. Last year, the Food and Drug Administration set a new record for generic drug approvals. Generic drugs can be up to 85% less expensive than brand drugs. So I believe the cost of prescription drugs is an area where Democrats and Republicans in Congress and the administration can find common ground to help Americans reduce the cost of health care that they pay for out of their own pocket. I'm very hopeful that our bill, with 55 proposals from 65 senators, which has been reported to the Senate floor, will be placed by the majority and minority leaders on the Senate floor before the end of the month. We can pass it, the House will do their job, we can send it to the President and lower prescription drug costs. Thank the President. I yield the floor.